Hello, and welcome back to today's episode of CryptOMG. We're going to dive a little bit into decentralized physical infrastructure networks. There's one coming out with lots of solid news. Let's get into it. So this week we got a really big announcement from Telefonica Mexico, which is that they're bringing Helium Network to over 2 million subscribers in Mexico. Let's talk about onboarding noobs, because 2 million subscribers, that's a lot of people. Now, what exactly is Helium Network? It is the leader in the DePIN space. This is decentralized physical infrastructure network. I would personally constitute Bitcoin, NEL1, right? Things that have hardware validating transactions and blocks. That's also DePIN in my mind. So to some degree, DePIN has been the industry since day one. However, it is now becoming this subcategory, which really represents using a token as a bootstrapping mechanism to start a physical infrastructure network. In Helium's case, they're talking about IoT, connectivity, wireless, and ultimately broadband. So we look at Helium very quickly. This is their website. It's very clean. They've raised a ton of money. They've made themselves look like a Web 2 product. But what they do is they have these hardware devices. This is essentially what they sold a token in order to raise funds to build. And these hardware devices are mobile hotspots. They're IoT hotspots. Again, coverage for phones versus coverage for things. In a world where everything is going to be connected, we need to figure out great ways to manage that bandwidth. To do it all over 3G is really slamming the companies. And wireless is a much better form factor for these kind of things. So there is a question of, can you convert your current wireless hardware into a network provider? Do you buy new ones? How exactly do you position these things? Helium's core concept is that people would set up around their house, around their neighborhoods, these wireless hotspots. Together, those would mesh, and anyone on the Helium network could connect and have an alternative to broadband, towards 3G, towards all of the major providers coming out of the telecom industries. Now, this is useful in a few different ways. One, DePIN has proven to be extremely robust, right? When these networks are decentralized, when it relies on individuals looking at the network, finding weak points, and being financially incentivized to fill that, that makes a very anti-fragile network, right? It is almost alive and very responsive to its weak points. Again, it uses the token to incentivize people to bring this hardware up to speed to strengthen the entire network. Now, Helium has been growing for a very long time, and it is sort of the primary representative of DePIN. The real question now is, can the token maintain its price over time, right? If the token is going to be what incentivizes people to contribute to the network, then it needs to maintain some value. Now, the way Helium works is if you add that hardware, if you add something that allows people to connect, you will be mining the tokens. Anyone that connects to the network will be using the tokens to pay for that connectivity. But this is really robust, really responsive. Let's say a central hub in your city goes down for wireless, and everybody from Comcast is suddenly without internet access. This is an alternative network. They can tap directly into the ISP. There's literally points in every city where the internet comes out of the ground, the internet being hard wires that exist under the earth. You can physically touch the internet, and then wireless providers simply broadcast that across. Now, if we can do it in an alternative fashion where it is owned and supported by a broad group of people that are centralized via a token, we get something that's much more responsive, much more flexible. Okay, so this is a map of Helium's mobile hotspots. You can see inside the United States, there are tons. Let's just beam in somewhere like New Mexico. We have 73 around Santa Fe. Of course, they start to populate. Now, if you were on your phone and you had the Helium network and you got close to any of these nodes, you would be locked in and ready to rock. Now, I do look around the planet and I see, tons in the US, but I'm not sure why it's not populating. I really would have expected it to be quite large, especially around Africa. So this might be an Explorer problem. I'm not confident enough to say that Helium is only active, but I mean, we see Ukraine here. So again, this is a perfect use case. A country in war that might not have access to the centralized powers can use a network like this to tap into place. Of course, we got to look at it. The concept is that this is a bootstrapping token, right? So the initial release of Helium did create a bit of wealth, and this is the cash that they're going to extract. The Helium network itself will sell against some of their tokens, obviously, to get stablecoins, to get dollars, and this is how they built the company. But the whole company does rely on people providing actual work, electricity, things that cost money to support the network. So the concept is that this token needs to maintain at least a floor price to recuperate recuperate, say, buying the piece of hardware over time. If it only takes a year or two to recuperate the cost of the hardware and then you're earning Helium for the rest of the time, it's probably a worthwhile investment. The question is, will the token be able to maintain that price? It's had a pretty steep fall off along with the current market itself. So that is always something to look at. Now, of course, there are competitors. This is a company that, in full disclosure, I work very closely with. So I do have a position. There is no coin launched yet, but I find the product to be quite amazing. These guys are actually working with the telcos who found that when people consolidate in big groups, let's say the Super Bowl, the telecommunication providers get overwhelmed. They would like to find a way to move from wireless over to Wi-Fi. So the whole concept behind Roam is that you can take existing Wi-Fi networks and again, repair a mesh. Basically, it takes the login credentials, it stores them in a secure ID on chain, and if you are part of this network, you can access the login credentials for any one of these Wi-Fi addresses. Now, when I expand back and I start to look at Roam's node count, you can see that it is quite large. Here we have a really dense coverage of the United States, but we can also see that as we go around the world, there is a total growth of nodes here in some density in Nigeria, of course Kenya proving to be quite large. So again, these are places where people may not have robust centralized telco providers or Wi-Fi services. This network allows you to connect and mesh all of these things, and we can see that it is quite densely populated around Europe and of course Asia as well. Now, the way Roam works is that it incentivizes network providers who provide the actual Wi-Fi. They generate tokens as well. Anyone can go towards a Wi-Fi and check in. Basically, they're pinging a stress test to the network to make sure it's actually providing the data it says. Those people can earn tokens. And then anyone can build an app on top of this network. So they can incentivize people here to build something proprietary to all of the users. Think of it as like your local Facebook buy nothing kind of application, and it can tap into anyone using this. When I cross into foreign borders, I actually use my Roam app, and I can connect wirelessly without having to pay the massive fee. One of the interesting concepts here is that instead of earning tokens, you can actually choose to earn eSIM credits. So by participating in this network, by either putting out Wi-Fi network connectivity or by checking in, you can actually earn connectivity in eSIM credits that you might want to use when you're abroad. This could save you hundreds of dollars as you travel internationally. I think it's pretty cool, and it's another one to check out. And of course, we have pretty massive Wi-Fi map view of almost 2 million nodes globally. So that's pretty significant. These things are all experimental and they're beginning to take off. This is called DePIN. It's an interesting sector and it's very reflexive. When we've seen natural disasters happen in the past, like when North Carolina got hit by the hurricane, it was Helium that was the first to reestablish their network. So a lot of people were gaining access back to their phones to internet connectivity via Helium. It proved to be a wildly responsive and healthy and robust way to regain network ownership. Again, anyone that was capable of connecting could put up a node and provide that access point. So rather than relying on a single point of failure, a company that's trying to extract value from all of its users, we now have a user-centric company that's able to reward those users in places of need and incentivize them to get out there. So that is pretty amazing, and we are beginning to see some mass adoption happening with this Telefonica deal. Last but not least, I woke up this morning and ByBit got hit with a $1.4 billion hack. The way this happened was they were trying to move funds between two wallets. They looked at the transaction ID, everything read out appropriately, but when they went to sign, it actually moved the assets to a new wallet address. There are ways around this. They could have done the multi-signature access points from mobile as well as a desktop. It's much harder to exploit all of the devices at once, and there are some interesting features that will triple validate if the transaction address is correct and if the funds are going to the right place. Now, I think ByBit is handling this extremely well. They've been on Twitter being quite transparent. This is not like FTX. So here he says, ByBit ETH multi-sig cold wallet just made a transfer to our warm wallet about an hour ago, and Ben Joe of ByBit Ben is expressing a lot of truth in what happened here. They are fully solvent. They can cover these costs. That's how much money exchanges make. That's how much money exchanges make, but this is not a great look. I do hope that they will reevaluate their security parameters around this, and this is probably North Korea because it always is. Anyway, this is why the market's probably having some negative sentiment on this lovely Friday, but it does not look like it is terminal in the way that FTX was. I think we will get over this and we will move forward. As always, guys, good luck out there. Not your keys, not your coins. Safety first, and I'll see you later.